Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for coming tonight. We'd like to continue the regular meeting for January 17th, 2018. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of meetings for December 19th, the regular meeting, and the closed. Sisla, Dunn, and Mancuso are eligible to vote. Okay.
Yes.
A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Nunn?
Yes.
Mr. Mills, you're up.
Yes, Mayor. There are four ordinances for introduction. All of them will be further considered for second reading, public hearing, and final consideration on February 21st of this year at 7 o'clock at the municipal building. First, ordinance 1-18 entitled an ordinance amending chapter 398 entitled residential property. I'll ask you to ask for a motion to introduce. Oh, hold on that one?
Should we just want an explanation, correct? Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mills and Township, that involves the CCOs that are issued for transfer of property. An oversight in the ordinance going back was the length of time that the CCO would be good. Past practice has always been 90 days. That has now been incorporated into the ordinance that a CCO when issued is good for 90 days, and the construction official would have the ability to add another 30 days onto that for good cause.
So that's been past practice, it's just now in writing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Somebody introduce it, please.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mills.
2-18 entitled an ordinance appropriating $440,000 available in the Open Space Trust Fund and provide for various improvements referred to herein and by the Township of Morris.
I'm going to jump in on
Yep.
that one also.
Go ahead.
That's just to take the money to, we have a number of projects that are ongoing with our trails, Cornine Field, the Ginty Complex, Collinsville Playground, to make sure that we have enough funding in place for that. But primarily the two applications we have through the grants for additional trails up at Jockey Hollow Top Reserve and also for Blue Gate Farm.
Somebody introduce the ordinance, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
3-18, an ordinance amending chapter 447.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Amending chapter 447, pool, municipal rules and regulations, in particular, replacing section 447-5 entitled membership fees A through J.
Introduce the ordinance,
I'll
please.
move that, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Mills.
Yes, last of the ordinances, 418, an ordinance adding a new article to chapter 102, officers and employees, title is Human Resources Manager.
Introduce the ordinance, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, resolutions.
All right, now there's a request by one of the members I have of the committee here to hold, so I'll offer them as resolutions 14-18 through 36-18, accepting 15, 18, 18, 18, 19, 18, 28, 18, 34, 18, and Ms. Wilson also 35, 18?
Yes.
Okay, so the vote would be on all of the resolutions except for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if someone would offer that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bontes?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Mancuso?
Yes.
All right, then individually by resolution, 15-18 is entitled RE Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Fiscal Grant Cycle, July 2014 to June 2019. We need an offer and a second and a discussion.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Okay, so discussion. I had a few questions about this. What this says to me is that the,
Would it be easier to have Mr. Quinn explain it? Or
Mr. President?
yeah, go ahead.
This is the municipal alliance funding that we get. It comes down from the federal to the state into the county, administered by the county. We get a grant every year. The grant for the past 5 years has been roughly $31,000, a little bit more than $31,000. There's a 25% match for us. There's in-kind services that the groups that get the money from us go to. It goes to things such as Team Pride, Morris Education Foundation, other programs that we put on to help with preventing alcohol and drug abuse. We have a joint municipal alliance committee that administers the grant program. That joint municipal alliance has members from both Morris Township and Morristown. Meet periodically to review that and make the recommendations for them. It's a reimbursement grant, so the organizations put out the funding, they submit their receipts, it's reviewed, and then it's paid out after it's been approved by the county of Morris.
Does the joint municipal alliance, do they meet on a regular basis?
Yes, they do.
So would it be possible to put their meeting schedule on the website?
They're
I
an
don't
ad,
believe it's on there.
they're an ad hoc, so they meet at the beginning of the year, the fiscal year. They look at that, and then they pick the meeting dates as they need to. We have a coordinator for that, and as things come up, she will call for a meeting so that the meeting can discuss. So
Is it a public meeting?
yes, it is.
And are those posted on the website?
They are not.
How is it that the public should know about that?
I don't have an answer for you on that other than
Could we post it? Could it be posted
it could be.
on the website?
Sure.
And also, do they produce a budget? I mean,
The budget is what you see there in the grant.
I mean, but like a listing of who the money, which groups the money goes to?
That's all filed with the county.
So, and that's public information.
Yes. But there's a reimbursement grant, so they're given an allotment, they come back with the receipts and they get paid for that. Once they come back with the receipts for the reimbursement.
I've never seen that. I would be interested to see
You're
that.
more than welcome to have it anytime you wish.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll take you up on
All
that.
right. Motion moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor McKinney?
Yes.
The next one that was singled out is 1818, authorization for 2017 tonnage grants, mandatory source separation and recycling act. If I can offer a second.
So moved.
Second. Comment?
Quick question about that. Can you explain how the implementation of the single stream recycling affects this grant application?
Has no effect on it at all.
None. So this is an ongoing grant?
This has been ongoing for 15 or 20 years, I think. And it basically, we have to file with the state what we recycle every year, and it's broken down into about 15 categories. And it basically comes in with the tonnage of what we're recycling, whether it be bottles, cans, cardboard, those kinds of things. It all goes down to the state.
So the single stream is not going to increase the amount that we recycle?
It may help with getting the tonnage up there so we get more money, but it doesn't, the different categories are going to remain the same, and it's based on what we recycle in those categories.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor McKinney?
Yes.
1918, authorizing the mayor and council clerk and municipal housing liaison to execute an agreement with the Housing Partnership for Morris County, Blackwell Street and Dover, coordinate affordable housing unit for a one-year period, January 1 to December 31 of this year, with automatic renewal and an amount not to exceed $20,000.
Someone offer 1918, please? So moved.
Second.
Okay. Comment?
So I'm the one that has the questions. The resolutions authorizes the mayor, the township clerk, and the municipal housing liaison to execute an agreement with the housing partnership. Who is the municipal housing liaison?
Yours truly.
Ah, it's you, okay. So Can you explain, there's also, we have the Housing Advisory Council, which is an ad hoc group, is that correct?
That is correct.
And other than the members of the group, I don't see any other information about that group on the website. Does that group meet?
No, ma'am.
What does that group do?
If there is some type of dispute involving housing or whatever, they would meet to mediate that dispute. And in the 7 years that I've been on it, I haven't had to call a meeting yet.
Okay, good, that's a good thing. And I noticed there's a vacancy. Is that vacancy needed to be filled? I guess not, if it doesn't meet. So, answered my own question.
Moved and
Thank
seconded.
you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Vazquez?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
2818 is next, authorizing the award of a non-fair and open contract for legal tax appeals to Chiesa, Shannon, Giantomasi, 1 Boundbrook Drive, West Orange, $150 an hour, not to exceed $55,000.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Mr. Quinn?
This is our tax appeal. We have a number of commercial tax appeals and some residential. They handle primarily the commercial tax appeals for us and trying to come to resolutions that are in the benefit of the township. As you're aware, it's a significant concern because although we take in 25 cents on the dollar, we pay out dollar for dollar.
And this is Mr. Lloyd's firm, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yep.
Who met with him?
Correct.
Okay.
Did I answer
Any more
your
discussion? If not,
Any other thing, questions?
Well, I was just wanting a basic explanation of tax appeals and the connection with the different taxing authorities, schools and county.
We are the collector. The tax dollar is basically broken up, not counting like small amounts for open space, but 25% is the township, 15% is the county, and 60% is the school district. Tax appeals are usually settled many years after the tax year, and if they are successful in their tax appeal, they are entitled to a refund. That refund is not divided up among those 3 entities, but it's the responsibility of the township to make the full refund.
I've heard you talk about that before.
In other
I
words,
think it's
we
an
collect-
important concern.
we collect 25 cents and we pay back $1,
Correct.
which is sort of diseconomic. Roll call,
Not a big
please.
deal.
Mr. Vazquez?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Macaluso?
Yes.
The next resolution is 3418, opposing the newly proposed beekeeping rules and urging the New Jersey Department of Agriculture to create rules with straightforward regulations based on fact, science, and best management of beekeepers and bee colonies in New Jersey.
Someone offer the resolution, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm the one who requested that this be pulled just primarily for information for the public. I don't believe it's on the list of resolutions that...
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes, ma'am.
There was quite a bit of background information about this, which I found very interesting. And I don't have a little summary right here, but there was a lot that went into this. I'm in favor of this resolution. What stood out to me was that the existing resolutions proposed by the Department of Agriculture are lacking, and that what's suggested here is that regulations based on facts, science, and best management practices are needed, and I agree with that, and I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight that.
And basically, the situation exists where they are saying that the sites of a smaller nature, is it a quarter of an acre or half an acre, should not be allowed to do beekeeping, and we are saying that, why not?
We have Dr. Fowler here from our Board of Health and is also a member of the Morris Somerset Beekeeping Association, and I'm sure she would be happy to answer any questions.
It's under a quarter of an acre. You cannot-
Quarter of an acre.
Unless you've had them there before July 31st, 2014.
The presentation was made to the Environmental Commission on this back on Thursday, January the 11th. With that, the recommendation from the Environmental Commission from Mrs. Young was for the Township Committee to adopt this resolution to be forwarded down to the New Jersey Department of Agriculture and a number of other entities, that the regulations that are proposed are very detrimental for the smaller beekeepers and making sure that we have bees that are going to pollinate and produce in our neighborhoods, and that this would take that away, and as I said, would have an overall detrimental effect. Pretty much put it in a nutshell, I hope.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
This is going to be good. Okay, Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Arvanites?
Arvanites?
Yes.
Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Okay, Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Yes.
And I think, Mayor, the last one is 3518, and Mr. Quinn may have already answered Ms. Wilson's question, but I'll read it. Authorizing the acceptance of a maintenance bond in the amount of $20,951, essentially for a 2-year term, which is the standard maintenance bond duration regarding the roadway and other public improvements at Van Buren Estates and Andrea Lane.
Mr. Quinn answered
I
the
think
question.
we got
I need a
to,
motion.
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Quinn answered the question for me, but I asked him to explain it for the benefit of the public.
this is a new street that was created for a 3-house development up off Van Buren called Andrea Lane. The work for the roadway has been satisfactorily completed. Our engineering department has reviewed it, looked at it, inspected it, and concur that it is done. What is now required is that performance bond, a portion of that 50% is going to be taken as a maintenance bond. We hold that on it for 2 years, so that there's any issues with the roadway, such as if it collapses, or if we have potholes, or there's some other thing that the Morris Township isn't left responsible to pay for the repairs to that, and we can go after that bond.
Precisely.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, roll call vote.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mayor Van
Yes. Okay, we come to the portion of the meeting for public comment and inquiry. Anyone who cares to step up and say a few words, ask questions, etc., we'd be happy to hear you.
Good evening, Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. A couple of questions, if this is the appropriate time to ask high-level questions on the ordinances that were introduced tonight, if that's answerable.
Next month, we'll be doing it.
There will be a second public hearing, but, you know, it's,
Okay.
you can ask if you want.
Thank you. So regarding ordinance 02-18 for the Open Space Trust Fund and the monies to be allocated for various projects around town, I think I heard you mention, so there could be monies allocated for Ginty Pool and Streeter Pool, is that accurate?
No, the complexes,
For the complexes,
not the pools.
not the pools. So are those complexes, because that's my understanding that the pools are run as utilities. So could monies come, is it appropriate to use open space fund for the complexes versus coming out of the utilities?
When I say complexes, we're talking about recreation fields, not pools.
Not pools.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying that. On 04-18, the HR manager, the new role, is that a new position within the township?
No.
So it's to replace an existing, or
It's
why is there an
taking-
ordinance needed?
It's taking a responsibilities of one individual, which there's about 4 different titles she holds, and putting them into one and putting into a supervisory position.
So there won't be any add to staff or new hires affiliated with this? It's,
No, there will not.
It's an amalgamation of everything she's doing now put into one.
thank you for clarifying that. Regarding onto resolution 17-18, the appointment of Alan Johnson, is that a paid position?
No.
Thank you. And regarding 31-18, the contract with Zafir Technologies for $77,000, is that a 1-year annual contract that is renewed each year?
Yes.
And 33-18 for the various professional services. Is that sort of summarizing everything that was preceding it in the resolutions, or are those unique individuals and entities that are also being ability to allocate funds to?
Those are ones that do not reach the threshold of the 17,500, so they're basically quote unquote as needed if something arises.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Anything more than 17.5.
Yep.
Obviously, we have to go out.
Thank you. Last month's meeting, there was mention of a settlement agreement with National Union Fire where there was, I believe, about $350,000, which is coming back into the township.
Correct.
Where are those monies being allocated? Are they going into a general fund, reserves, or where's that money going to? I meant to.
Myrna.
I'm sorry?
Myrna. Monies received not anticipated.
So that goes, that fund is,
Goes back into the, actually that one falls going back into the general fund balance.
general fund. Thank you. In looking at the agreement that was reached with the Fair Share housing settlement, I noticed that as part of the settlement, it looks like the township is sort of on the hook for $15,000 in attorney fees to cover the Fair Share housing centers, I guess, legal bill. Does,
Not entirely. We're going to have some assistance with that with a redeveloper.
assistance with paying the $15,000? So we will pay a portion of it, and I'm sorry, a redeveloper?
Correct. The settlement involves a number of properties, one of which includes the Colgate facility, the former Menon tract. The redeveloper there will be participating with us in the payment of those fees.
That's some amount to be determined at a later date, I'm assuming?
It is. I just don't remember if it's 10 or all of it or 10.
So they're paying 10, we're paying 5.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. I have a question on something that I came across in the papers regarding a gentleman that was pardoned by Governor Christie on his way out of office, Joseph Longo, and it was mentioned that he had done business with Morris Township. And looking on the township website and bids, it looks like there was just one contract for about $454,000 for a replacement of a control panel at Butterworth. Is there anything to be concerned? This gentleman had pleaded guilty to tampering with public records. Is there anything to be concerned about with from any dealings with the township?
No.
At the end of the year, there was a big scurry of activity to prepay property taxes. Do we have a number on how much we've collected?
11,500,000.
11, wow, okay. That's a pretty big number. Yeah, wow, okay. And that money sits in an interest-bearing account, or how do we, money's anticipated, received but not anticipated?
No.
Okay. Anticipated. It's anticipated and received.
It's not going to sit very long because the first payment would have been due February 1st, the second payment due May 1st. The majority of the people that paid the first 2 quarters or the first quarter. They didn't pay the whole year. So it'll be a very short period of time where we'll have a small financial gain.
That can be folded back into some benefit.
That can go back back into fund balance. We receive approximately $173,000 a year in interest. And so it'll be a little bit higher than that, I'm sure, at the end of the year, and that will just roll back into fund balance.
Okay, thank you for explaining that and shedding light on that. I appreciate it. My last question is regarding the Cornine Field project. Maybe you can help elaborate as to how the bid was allocated for that. I believe, and I could be wrong with that, but it's supposed to go to the lowest bidder. And looking at the bid history on the township website, it looked like about 12 bids were received. I did notice there was one bidder that was lower than the Rochelle Contracting. Is there a reason why it didn't go to the lowest bidder in this case?
The low bid to which you refer was deemed non-responsive. The bidder did not identify the materials that he was intending to use, which was a critical component of the bid for that part of the system that remediates the methane gas. And he also didn't supply a table of equipment that our reviewing engineers felt was sufficient to allow him to even complete the project. So the bid was rejected as non-responsive. Right. One of the missing components was the very key element, the type of turf that he intended to install.
Gotcha. So the application was sort of viewed as incomplete or?
It was non-responsive.
Non-responsive.
Didn't meet the specification. Didn't
Didn't meet what the requirements of what they were seeking to fulfill the.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then also on Corn Field, it looks like about 900,000 of the expenditure is actually for the turf field itself. Is that accurate?
Sounds about right, but I'll defer to Mr. Quinn.
It's actually a little bit higher than that.
A little bit higher than that?
Yeah, because it's a combination of both doing the remediation work and then doing the turf work on top of that.
Gotcha. And was there ever any thought or overtures or effort made to reach out to raise private money from that, from all of our corporations around here to sort of maybe get some sponsorship or to raise any private money at all rather than pulling that all out of our money?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Anyone else care to be heard?
Hi, George Quillen, 7 Bishop Court. I had a couple of things I wanted to comment on and ask about. First, late last year, I started again spending a lot of time looking at the master plan reevaluation report from the planning board, which they did a lot of great work on last year. It's like 99 pages long. Don't know how many people have gotten through the whole thing one more time, but I made a lot of comments on it when the planning board was working on this project, and didn't get a chance to read the final report until a couple of months ago. And I noticed there are quite a few recommendations. There's something like 8 pages of recommendations, and I wanted to know what the process is for evaluating the recommendations that have been made in the reevaluation report. Is that a job of the township committee or planning board or of some subset of each? And what process is
The
important?
master plan itself, as you know, is purely a planning board product. I'm not familiar, I haven't looked at the master plan yet, so I don't know what recommendations are contained in it. I assume they may be for modifications to some zoning ordinances and that sort of thing. But that would originate here. Initially, this body would consider whether it was deemed an proposed ordinance change worthy, draft one, send it to the planning board for their review, then it would come back after that review for a public hearing. But I don't think we've had occasion to take the master plan up off the table yet this year.
Okay. I'm sorry, what was your comment?
Some of the improvements that would be recommended would be done better through the engineering department and the engineering subcommittee for consideration by the township committee.
Okay, but of course the township engineer is part of the planning board review process as well, so he's
an advisor.
well acquainted with all of this.
Yes.
One of the sets of recommendations that I wanted to particularly highlight is the recommendation with respect to circulation. So there is a recommendation that a transportation advisory committee be established similar to the economic development advisory committee. And I want to suggest that the township committee consider taking this up this year and as soon as possible and establishing such an advisory committee. I think it would be very helpful to coordinate the different types of transportation issues that residents of the township are concerned about.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg.
Secondly, I wanted to ask, a number of months ago, and I don't remember exactly when this was, it may have been in the summertime, there was a mention at, I believe it was a township committee meeting, of a possible acquisition of property from St. Virgil's Church for some kind of recreational facility. Is that something that anyone can report on the status of?
The St. Virgil's decided not to move forward on that.
Let's see. All right, finally I wanted to say that this is going to be the last one of these meetings that I can attend for a little while, so I'm sorry that I'm not going to be around probably until May, but I kind of accidentally agreed to an activity which conflicts with this. I'm going to be teaching a course at Fairleigh Dickinson on Wednesday nights from now through April. So unless you reschedule one of your meetings for something other than Wednesday, you're not going to see me until May.
Sounds like a good class field trip coming there.
Yeah, so if you have any statistical matters that are going to come up before the township committee, my statistics class can come and view them. But it's a statistics course to put together this weekend. But I'm going to try to stay involved as much as I can in township matters by going to the planning board meetings, by going to the environmental commission meetings, and several other boards and advisory groups. So, thank
Well, the best wishes, sir. We'll see you in the spring.
you. Thanks.
Anyone else in the public can be heard? Yes, sir.
Diane Holland, 26 North Ridge Place. This is just a question about potential adjustment to the meeting agenda, and wondered if the committee would consider allowing attendees to comment after the township committee makes a comment. Only because sometimes things are said by committee members and we have to wait a month before we can come back and question something, and it leads some people, to myself, to think that maybe we're being pushed aside. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while there might be something that if we had to wait a month, the focus might be lost. And I wondered if the committee, you don't have to decide today, but you might consider it, so that there's a little more give and take between the homeowners or the residents and the governing body.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. We will
I think the
consider it.
township committee likes the last word.
I understand that, but I'm saying it's not a bad idea to allow the flow of conversation.
Anyone else care to be heard? Thank you, Michelle.
Susan Young, 35 Schoolhouse Lane. And when you be speaking as the environmental chairman tonight, I want to thank you very much for supporting our opposition to the bee proposal by the state of New Jersey. It will impact not only the beekeepers in Morris Township, but also the 2 bee hives that we have in our community gardens and also in the Morristown urban farms, because the bees would be in violation of how far you would have to have the hives from people. So well, that still remains to be seen, but how they're going to actually register all the bees in the state is going to be an interesting process. I want to acknowledge and thank Sonia Santiago, Jim Slate, Franz Vichner, and Tim Quinn for their support and guidance for our Environmental Commission. And also the Ted Largeman Organic Community Garden now project has been completed. And it is so noted in the master plan. And now we are on to our day-to-day operation. We've established classes. We're working on the curriculum for the new gardeners. We have 105 plots. They're all filled. We have 8 new gardeners, and they will all be assigned mentors so that the first year of gardening will be much smoother. We have a team of volunteers who deliver the produce to the Interfaith Food Bank every week. And this year, we donated 814 pounds of produce to the Interstate Faith and to Market Street Mission. And with the actual additional produce from our gardeners, we produced over a half a ton of produce for these 2 organizations, and we're very proud of the fact that our little garden is doing that. Programs that we're going to be working on this year, we're going to have mini classes that will be actually in the garden, and at certain times they may be impromptu because someone found a pest in the garden, like a squash beetle, and we'll have a meeting, a group talking about what they can do to eradicate that. We have 15 blocks. Not all of the pests attack all of the blocks, so we're very fortunate that we don't have a garden-wide problem, an issue. We've contacted Chris Fenwick, who is the head astronomer of the Interfaith of the Longo Planetarium, and we hope to have an astronomy night, and it will be a follow-up program at the planetarium at another time. We're still working on that. We participate in the Open Gates program. That's a Morris County Community Garden-wide program where the public can come into the community gardens and visit the gardeners and see our particular garden as well as other gardeners. We had 24 visitors the first year and 54 last year. We're kind of on the periphery, so for people to come to us from the rest of Morris County is a real hike. But we hope to have additional people. And then we have our open festival in the fall, our harvest festival in the fall, which was a lot of fun. All the produce that the gardeners created could go toward the recipes, and the food was really excellent. We have some fantastic chefs, especially the gentlemen in our garden. We have a donor. Someone from the township has donated money for a children's garden. We're going to try to work with the schools. The problem is that we have transportation issues, that the children who are coming in are going to have to be able to come out to the garden on a consistent basis. So that involves parents or someone else who would be bringing these children in, because we are not a walk-to garden. So we'll see how that works. We're also starting a pollinating garden this year here and possibly 2 other locations within the township. Some of the projects for the EC committee or EC group will be invasive species. We're trying to get more attuned to that. We know that we have the invasive species, especially Phragmites, which has invaded the reservoir on Western Avenue. If you drive down towards the airport, you'll see Phragmites on both sides. That used to be cat o' nine tails and smaller grasses. So Phragmites grows 20 inches a year. Problem is that it's a monoculture, so as it grows, it just destroys everything that else is there. We have Mile a Minute, and Franz is very interested in the Mile a Minute. We have Mile a Minute, which is a part of the kudzu family, and that grows 6 inches a day. So we have it at the parking lot. We have it on all of our open fields. It is in the valley. It consumes all the bushes by growing a big carpet. Mark Mayer, who is the biospecialist for the New Jersey Strike Team, said that we already have a bio solution to it. It's a little weevil that's supposedly destroying and is presently here, although I haven't seen any evidence that it is. So we'll try to see how that works. I attended a program Sunday. Kathy Wilson had a program from the New Jersey Clean Energy Team, and an individual who talked about home energy. We're going to be duplicating that and adding to it, and hopefully that will help us in part of our program this year. We're going to be updating our website. Environmental issues are not page-turning issues. So we're going to try to get it from drab to a little fab and see if we can coordinate it with the health, the Parks and Recreation, and the DPW. So if we're talking about reducing something or recycling, just press the key, it goes directly to Tom Eschman's DPW page. The emphasis here is refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Refuse plastic bags, refuse plastic straws. I was amazed that 50 million plastic straws are used every single day. Every plastic straw that was ever created is still on the earth and will continue to be still on the earth. 60 million plastic bottles every day are used, which means that in the landfills on a yearly basis, there are 18,834,000,000 plastic bottles being consumed. So those things will never go away. They're just going to always be there. What I've been working on in my house is reducing energy. We all have phantom loads. Phantom loads is anything that has a light, a clock, a remote. And I tried to get that disc that's outside of my house to stop. I counted 72 phantom loads in my house. all of which, we turned off the TV and the cable box and the DVD and DVR. It took 15 minutes to reload that, turned it back on. So in a world of convenience, turning everything off doesn't necessarily work unless you have a lot of patience. And so we're still trying to work on reducing energy, reducing single-use plastic. And then reusing, we will have a page that will actually tell people where they can take all of their things that are in their house that they are not using, where they can put it, including the DPW large appliance and furniture, etc., collection that they do. And then recycling. Our single stream program cannot get much simpler. But there's still some confusion as to where do you put the pizza box. You cut that all up because the grease is not allowed.
Take the coupon out too before you do it.
Yes. So what we've started to do is create a green team within the Environmental Commission. That's underway, and that will be individuals from the business community, from the health community, from our own departments in the township, and residents of the community. And our quest is to educate, encourage the residents and businesses to be environmentally responsible. So with that, one of the big issues right now, or not an issue, but plans, is to have a health, technology, and environmental festival sometime in the summertime. Date and location to be determined. We'll have the health and wellness folks. I've already talked to the fire and police departments. They said that they will bring some trucks out so people can have hands-on, well, not too many hands, but whatever they're allowed to do. We'll have the DPW, the Single Stream Initiative, more information on that and the equipment. And so you can actually see the one-armed bandit work. It's magic. We're going to try to get self-defense programs, yoga, meditation, engage the schools in any projects that they may have that they would like to display, food vendors, try to make it as fun as possible. And also have vendors like New Jersey Clean Energy, home audit companies, solar, geothermal, wind, cleaning green supplies, and how to explain the carbon footprint that everyone talks about, but no one can really.
Speaking of, we have the Sasquatch of carbon footprints. Here, look at this huge water.
I saw that when I came
Staring at you. You have to hydrate.
They have already metal cans that you can use over and over again. And then we'll try to engage the electric and the hybrid car dealers to make sure that they can bring some of their equipment in and we can take a look at that. But has anyone here ever been to that? Is it the hazmat group, Tim? The group that is for emergencies over in 287 and that, are they still there? Pardon?
Yes, ma'am.
If you've not ever seen that equipment is really impressive. So I would suggest anyone on the township committee to get a take, to have them explain how that operates. I also will be working on, this is New Jersey's guideline and primer for what they call it environmentally sustainable community. And I'll be working with the township departments to see how close we get to all of this in the future. So for this year, I'll probably have a report by the end of the year as to how close we are. And, any suggestions, any comments?
Can you comment a little more about that piece you just mentioned, environmentally sustainable communities, and are you looking for metrics? Or what are you looking for in communicating with the township department?
Metrics. That I still, I'm working on exactly how we're going to measure that. There is the Sustainable New Jersey program, 501c3. We do not have to do that according to the state. We can create our own committee to do that. And we can actually make our own signs and certificates as well, according to this. So that will be one of my charters this year. And we'll probably engage other people who are on the EC to help me out with that.
I would recommend consulting on the SJ materials. Their resources are really excellent.
I know.
Yes.
Yes. But I think we can, following their guidelines, I think from working with all of the departments that I have from the EC committee or the garden or the other groups that I've been involved with, I'm extremely impressed with the way this government is run. And I commend everybody for running a very tight ship. And yet all of the people who work in this township for us, the people who live here, they spend an inordinate amount of time. And just Jim Slate, Tim Quinn, and Sonia know more about the township than all of us put together. So I'm just really appreciative of all the work that you folks do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your nice words, Ms. Young. We thank you for all your efforts and for all the goodness that you bring to our township. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else care to be heard from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I was just able to get out after putting my kids to sleep. So excuse me for my naivete here. When I made...
Your name, please?
Oh, sorry. Exactly. My name is naivete. Ellen Stola. Address, start again? Okay,
Sure.
51 Alexandria Road. 51 Alexandria Road. So my family and I moved here in August. Actually, I have two things. Maybe I should start with this. Just to piggyback up. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Sue Young.
Sue. So to piggyback off of what Sue was talking about with environmental concerns, I believe that my daughter's public school is not recycling. I could be wrong, but I did ask this question at a PTA meeting the other day with the principal present, whether they are recycling at the school, and he informed me that they are not. There are recycling bins in certain sections of the school, but not in every classroom. So I was informed that in order to recycle, we would need a private company to do pickup. So I think that, you know, if as a township, if we want to appear to be environmentally conscious, we want to educate our children from a young age to start doing that. And if we're not doing it in the schools, you know, how are we modeling, you know, what are we teaching them? So that's just, you know, something off the cuff that I forgot to think about before I came. But now that you mentioned it, thank you for reminding me. And then the other issue I came here tonight for was about my, you know, I feel like I'm driving in New York City when I'm here on many roads, and I'm sure, I don't know if that's been discussed tonight or in previous meetings, and I don't know if there's anything I can do as a community member to help it, but especially in my neighborhood, and I'm sure this is going on in other neighborhoods as well, rush hour, for one, I feel like I'm pulling my hair out to get my kids to school and to work. And two, I'm terrified oftentimes to pull out of certain roads onto a main road that we're going to get hit because it feels like the ND 500. So I don't know what I can do about that to help it. I made several calls to, I guess, I don't know, traffic control. Somebody told me at the township, call this line. Left several messages, I've not gotten any phone calls back. Then somebody told me to call these lieutenants, have not gotten any calls back. So I would like to know what I can do as a citizen here to help it. Because I'm, like, in the community I lived in, I did not have these same concerns, and not that you can compare, but I also just was not afraid to drive on the road. I'm afraid to drive here on many roads. Like when I pull out off of Cadena onto Mendham every morning, I feel like it's like I'm a, you know, sitting duck with those cars coming around on Mendham. It's like also a 15-minute wait to pull out. So I don't know what I can do, but maybe you guys can.
traffic has been exacerbated since 1987 when 287, rather 24 came from the Short Hills Mall right into 287. It was to ameliorate traffic in Chatham, Madison, Morris Township, and Morristown. Well, because it has been a widely used road, the use has been exacerbated, and there have been more and more cars taking that road. And now what they're doing is they're coming off 24 and going on I-24 or on the back roads, and it's increasing the traffic everywhere. It's definitely a problem.
Yeah, but then like I also see buildings going up, for example, on Speedwell, where you have all those pedestrian crosswalks past the fire station. You have big apartment buildings going up, but yet you have like this really complicated traffic pattern, and I question every day, like, has this been analyzed in the past 10 years, and yet we're still putting buildings up, and you've got crazy traffic there, and it's also really dangerous. Like, you've got pedestrians crossing in these pedestrian crosswalks, and I'm thinking to myself, these pedestrians should be crossing at the lights. Like, the lights are not that far apart. Like, I think a pedestrian was hit a couple weeks ago on one of those crosswalks. I mean, you've got drivers frustrated because they can't get through the lights. I don't know. It's common sense to me, but.
Can I tell Mr. Quillen that you'll be one of the first volunteers to the advisory committee?
No, I think you're talking about Morristown.
You're talking about Morristown.
That's Morristown.
Is it, oh my gosh, sorry.
No,
Is that Morristown
Yeah,
already when I'm there?
I agree with
Okay,
you.
sorry, that's why I apologize for my.
It takes 20 minutes to get from one part of Morris Township to the other, because you have to go through Morristown. It's unbelievable.
Mhm.
I
And
don't
I'm
really know
just,
what
like, how do you, where can I start to make, to help the process change? Like, I'm sure there's, like, on Mills is Morris Township or
Morristown.
Morristown, okay. But the residents there were able to do something to change it. I mean, I don't think it was a great change, but they did something. So how do you?
What are you talking about there?
They had like, it was like the ND 500 on Mills, so they got them to install speed limit signs and like blinking speed limit signs so that people would slow down. I mean, I don't believe in that. I think people, unless you put a speed bump, people are not going to slow down. But at least the residents were able to do something. Like, I just feel like I'd like certain areas to be evaluated. I mean, how long has it been since these areas are evaluated? Has it been 10 years, 20 years?
Our police department basically does that all the time. And every year we add 2 to 4 different operations where you have a sign that says 25 miles an hour and you're going 40.
Mm-hmm.
And that slows you down. And we've been trying to put those all around the town in needy areas.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're expensive, and we've been buying them over the years. I guess since I've been here, we bought 2 to 4 every year. So,
Or lights?
But like Sussex,
Certain
like
areas.
Alexandria's of Sussex.
Right.
Right.
One part. We can't put a speed bump on
No,
Sussex, right? And that.
Sussex doesn't bother me,
But
actually.
it's backed up.
Right.
Do you find that people are cutting up Alexandria? Like, is Alexandria becoming
No.
a busy road?
No. But like Kadena, that's Morris Township, right? Going out to Wyndham.
That's dangerous.
That should have a light. That is so dangerous. And that's like where I have to turn onto Kadena, or coming from Scherzer where the park is after I pick my kids up, and going onto Kadena is like terrifying. You've got so much traffic coming 40 miles an hour in both ways. It's scary. So
The township was all set to put in a traffic light at, actually the county of Morris to put in a traffic light at Kadena and Menham Road.
they were set, or
All
they
set.
are
It
set?
was all set to go, and then it was a request made for additional traffic counts, and when they brought in the additional traffic counts, the engineering standards and the METCD required a left turn lane placed in there. Unfortunately, where that is, with the hillside, that's all rock, and on the other side is all wetlands.
Right.
It became an undoable project because of those constraints.
How long ago was that?
That was 2007.
Okay. And has traffic changed since then?
It's gotten heavier.
Significantly.
But
Right.
the wetlands are still there, and the rock is still there.
So they can't install like a blinking light or some kind of...
They can't install anything because it wouldn't make the engineering standards with the constraints that are there.
What about policemen at rush hour to...
How much do you want your taxes to go up?
If it...
The accident history there is very low. It's one of the things that goes into it, and they look at that because people do take extra caution there, and those Hail Marys are working.
The Hail Mary.
That was a joke.
I know. I'm not sure, I think it's
No,
funny because...
we are aware that it's a county road,
Yeah.
but there are significant constraints there that have prohibited the light from being installed.
Got it.
Ellen, thank you for your comments. Please come back
And when the-
anytime and share your thoughts with us, please.
And I will have
seriously,
some,
when the traffic advisory committee does come up, consider applying for it.
if you would like to leave me your name and address and telephone number, I'll have a member of the Police Department Traffic Safety Unit reach out to you and discuss your concerns.
Okay.
Anyone else from the public care to be heard? Close the public session. Somebody offer the consent calendar, please. So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Commentary by Township Committee. Mr. Arnage.
Just wanted to state that the ordinance was introduced today with regard to the pool membership fees. Fees just went up about $5 for residents. What I would recommend is for all of us to get the word out, to get our families to sign up and get their passes before May 1st, get a little bit of a savings. Also allows us to plan for staffing and events, and those types of things that go on at our pools. So last year we had a total of 2,119 memberships, which crosses from individuals to senior citizens to Morris Township residents and outside of Morris Township. Hopefully this year we can grow that. If we can grow it even by 10%, that would be great. And it all starts by all of us telling one or two people to join. So I will be joining this week, and hopefully others will follow. And do we have the paperwork ready to sign up?
Not quite yet, John.
Okay, so I won't be signing up this week, but...
Give us March 1st.
Okay, so March...
Maybe a little early.
March 1st, but if we can all spread the word, that would be great. There are a lot of great events that are being planned for our pools. And as far as the pricing that we have, we're not the lowest priced in the surrounding communities. We're also not the highest. But I think as far as the value that you get for what you pay, nobody can compare to what we have. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, my head is officially spinning, having been here since 5 o'clock, continuous incoming information. I had several things. It's only been 2 weeks since our reorganization meeting. So many things have happened since then. So I just want to highlight a couple. One is that the $5 ride for seniors, which I have been mentioning for months, I did make some progress on that. For those of you who don't know what that is, to me, there's a lot of concern with transportation for seniors. There are many seniors in our community who cannot drive, either permanently or on a temporary basis. And there is a program that Madison and Chatham have enacted, which I nicknamed the $5 ride for seniors. And what it is outside of being connected with the municipality. It's a citizens group. They've set up a nonprofit. They get funding through a grant organization that specializes in seniors' concerns. And the net output to seniors is that for $5, you get a ride to anywhere within 15 miles of your home, which is a great service. And the way it works is that they contract with an organization called Go Grandparents, which basically is like Uber for older people. And what it does, it eliminates the need to use an app on your phone, and you set up your account, you call directly into the organization, and then you get your ride. And they specialize in, they're very familiar with older people's needs, so they can accommodate walkers and wheelchairs and things like that. And they also offer a few extra added services, such as, for example, if you have a caretaker who has been driving you back and forth to doctor's appointments, you can sign up for the Go-Go Grandparent Service, and that service will send the caretaker a text message letting you know that the patient has, gotten back and forth from the doctor's office. So there are multiple benefits to this, and I met with the president of the organization, which is called Tri-Town 55. It's Coalition Madison and the two Chathams working together, and they have had thousands of seniors using this service. It's a national service, and you don't have to be part of this nonprofit to access it. So I'm actually going to try it out myself. Sign up for an account and go for it. And I have postcards here, which I talked with Tim about perhaps putting this information on our website, right? Did we
No,
talk
ma'am.
about that?
Not a township function.
Okay. All right, so we did talk about something, but I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Anyway, I feel really comfortable recommending it to the public. It sounds to me like an excellent service, and these three towns are gung-ho on recommending it to others. So that's one update.
Just a comment, ma'am.
Yes.
If you're going to do the senior citizens riding, you're going to lie about your age.
I qualify. I'm in. No, I have a need myself for the service, because I'm going to be unable to drive for a couple of days, so I'm going to try it out then. I qualify. Okay, also a little bit of progress on affordable housing. I know there are many concerns there to various people in our community, especially, again, seniors. And I've talked with Tim about offering an informational workshop about where you would talk about what the township does, and we'd have someone from the Housing Authority and from the partnership, right?
The Housing Partnership, Morris County Housing Authority, and possibly Homeless Solutions. They all have different things that they do, from for-sale units to rental units, senior units, and transitional housing. And
I
we
think
can
this
put
would be
together a
helpful. There's a lot of people in the community that would appreciate having that information all in one source. So that's coming toward the end of, or mid-April, right?
Right, we need to pick a date for this spring.
Okay, good. Also, I've been to several environmental events. As Sue Young referenced, there was this energy efficiency workshop, which I personally thought was excellent, on Sunday. And it was about the New Jersey Clean Energy Program, which I've been pushing for years. It is a really good program, in my opinion. They have portions of it for residents, for commercial and business, and they also have portions of it for municipalities. It is definitely worth looking into. It is underutilized, and this particular presentation was about the residential portion. So just an example, the resident who was there was from Morris Township. He contracted with a contractor that's recommended by the program. The end result is that he got $16,000 worth of energy upgrades. He decreased his energy bills by 30%, and his cost is $70 per month. And it was a top-notch audit. So this is definitely a program worth looking into, and I'm glad that we're going to bring it here. I was also glad to see, I was delighted to see the Environmental Commission establish a green team. That's a good thing. I've been wanting that for a long time, and I'm glad to see that happening. And I look forward to hopefully working with you on that. It's a special interest of mine. I also wanted to highlight, there is a workshop called the New Jersey Mayor's Climate Summit. It is on climate change, and I just have a quick comment about that. I know from talking to a wide range of people in our community that there are varying views on this. And one of many things that I did in the last 2 weeks was I attended this presentation called The Age of Consequences. And it was about climate change, and the part that I found so interesting was it was about the military, our military, identifying climate change as a significant security threat to our country. And so that would be a film I would recommend we're seeing. I also wanted to just, I think in the interest of time, I did want to highlight a few points about video. We have not had factual information out there too much in the past about video. I just would like to highlight that residents can watch video of these meetings on Cablevision. The time has changed. It's now on Sunday from 9 to 11. It's on the public access channel, channel 21. It is not yet available on Verizon. I'm hoping that we can make that happen in the months ahead. We also upload video to a YouTube channel, which is called Friends of Televised Access in Morris Township. And I'm the one that does the uploading, or has done in the past, the uploading. The last meeting, I uploaded the entire thing in one segment. Other meetings, I have uploaded individual segments to make it easier for uploading, frankly, and also more friendly for viewers. So in the past, this has been in place for 2 years, since almost 3, since May of 2015, and I'm hoping that as part of our work together efforts that we can shift the responsibility from being a project that I kind of carry out to something that's a township responsibility. And just one other point, what we do here is I contract privately with students. In the past, I've contracted with someone from the County College of Morris. Michael is from Morristown High School. And I personally would like to see us hopefully move toward a more official internship with the high school, which I hope will be part of our discussions going forward. Also, I just want to highlight that there's a march, a big march coming up this Saturday, the Women's March, thousands of people, and I kind of connect it with how I was quite inspired by the Martin Luther King Day ceremonies. I go every year to the noonday service, which is amazing. I also went this year to the breakfast. And for me, at least, there was a connection between some of the things that stood out to me from the Martin Luther King Day service and the march. And part of that, I would just like to say, let us not normalize the abnormal. It's not normal to have a president who lies all the time. Let us not become a nation of onlookers, silent in the face of things that matter. Our lives end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I really believe that. And that's part of why I personally am going to be participating in the march. It's a celebration of our First Amendment rights, our right to assembly. And very different people have different ideas I'll be marching for on behalf of. And I would encourage people to participate. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, we have tried very, very hard to keep our political views to a certain extent to ourselves and not to promulgate them here. We believe very strongly in so many issues, but I think this is the place where we discuss what goes on in the township and what we have, and I'm not quite sure that it's
okay, I'm
to speak about the president.
I would not have brought it up, but we do have the march coming.
Okay, you could have just mentioned the march and left it at that. Thank you. Mr. Sisler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to congratulate Patrolman Tim Neary and Patrolman Kevin Yarzab who have successfully completed all aspects of their field training and have completed their one-year probationary period. So congratulations to both of those gentlemen for coming on board. I also wanted to congratulate Robert Duffy Jr., who just became a member of the Fairchild Fire Company. The Duffys have been a crucial part of Morris Township for generations, and it's just wonderful to see Bob's son coming on board to Fairchild. I also wanted to talk really quickly. We're actively looking for members of the community to become part of our Neighborhood Watch program. The Neighborhood Watch is a great way to get involved with the community, and it's unique because it gives our residents direct access to our police department and our police officers. Many times they're the eyes and the ears of the community, and our agency relies on them for information and helps be proactive within our township. So if anyone is interested in joining that, contact Sergeant Heather Globlich. She is heading up that effort for us this year. I also wanted to just point out three other officers, if I can just pull this up, three other officers that were incredibly proactive in a particular crime that occurred last week. A neighbor of ours was selling their home and had some people go in, take a look at the house, then they had some other folks go in to do some inspections. And a sword that was purchased in World War II by the deceased homeowner was stolen. Detective Lieutenant Martin Tessmer, Patrolman Robert Dombrowski, and Patrolman Clay Boeinghouse were quick on this. They were notified by the son-in-law of the former homeowner. They went out, they did the investigation, and within 48 hours, the sword was returned. So hats off to them. Thank you to Chief DeCarlo as well for getting those phenomenal police officers in that position. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nunn.
Bail reform. So I think we would all agree that two similarly situated people committing a crime, one in Morris County, one in Essex County, should have the same bail set. So in that regard, bail reform is a great thing because what was happening over the past decade was crime in Morris County, the person may get out on no bail or a small bail. Same person committing the crime in Essex County would sit in jail for months, sometimes a year. Sometimes they'd run their entire sentence that they ultimately get in county jail. Conversely, when governments try to fix things, sometimes they go overboard. And so what the state of New Jersey decided to do was delegate the responsibility of setting bails to, in essence, a computer system. And so on January 5th, the Morris Township resident, someone I went to school with actually, same age as me, was in court. He was in jail for violation of a restraining order. And if someone violated a restraining order for making a phone call in violation of a restraining order with no criminal record, they typically wouldn't get a bail set, they'd be released ROR. This person has a significant history of crime, including prison sentences, drug-related burglaries to support this person's drug addiction, so it's a very sad story. But because of the computer system, the violation of the restraining order is not it's not a violent offense. This person was released and within 12 minutes walked down the road to the Wells Fargo, stuck up a mom and her son, or I don't know if it was a son or a daughter, but the child was with them, and this guy then stole her car and returned to the jail the next day to pick up his belongings from when he was initially arrested, and admitted, yeah, I was under the influence and I'm a drug addict and I needed the money to support my habit. And so prior to bail reform, the judge assigned to that case probably would have looked at this person's record and said, you know what, I am going to set a bail because you do have a criminal history, and I'm concerned that, although this offense isn't related to your criminal history, you have a propensity to commit crimes, but the computer system didn't pick up on it. I say this to you because if you follow the local news at all, this is not an isolated incident. And what's happening is people who commit burglary and theft offenses get arrested. In Morris Township, they're released. In Morristown, they're released. Mendham, they're released. Florham Park, they're released. And by the time it all catches up with them, they've continued to burglarize people. And they've just had one of the judges just set the bail that would have prevented several other victims. So just keep your eyes on it. And if you see it to continue to be a problem, write your legislators. have them lean on the system to change it, and maybe we find somewhere in between where there's a little more discretion and not so much relying on a computer system to tell us who should be released and when. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I have just a couple of comments. I've heard the last 2 weeks, people who are involved in this single stream recycling saying it's the absolute best thing that we've ever done in this township. Now, I think we've done a lot of good things, but I think I was very, very proud to hear all these people say these. And Mr. Lent, from the Newsweek, we thank you so much for coming and always being part of our little family and organization there. We interviewed 3 officers on Monday afternoon. We are going to add over a period of a year at least 3 people as people retire. And we have a pool of some of the best people I've ever been involved with in interviewing and seeing, and you're going to be very, very proud of these gentlemen and ladies when the time comes. And finally, with a new configuration, we've been spending a reasonable amount of time together, looking at the budgets and going over what's happening. And we've had these meetings, and I think we have reached, and in most cases, a real rapprochement or a rapport with each other. And I'm just very, very proud of how the 5 of us are working together. So I thank you all. Okay.
The best part was in 78.
Consideration of monthly reports. All right, circulated. And let's pay the bills. $7,433,878.44. A motion, please.
So,
Mr. Martinez?
Second.
Second. Mr. Nunn? Roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Robert?
yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mayor McKinney?
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.